What happens when an entitled talk show host thinks she can steamroll one of Hollywood's most beloved actors? Well, you're about to witness one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. Johnny Depp, the man who brought us Captain Jack Sparrow and countless unforgettable characters, found himself in the hot seat on The View, facing off against Whoopi Goldberg in what started as a routine interview, but quickly spiraled into an absolute disaster. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about celebrity interviews gone wrong. The studio lights were blazing as Johnny Depp settled into the guest chair, his signature rings catching the studio lighting. The audience was buzzing with excitement, phones out, ready to capture every moment. Whoopi Goldberg sat across from him, flanked by her co-hosts Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and Sunny Hostin. What should have been a celebration of Depp's latest film project was about to become something entirely different. So Johnny, Whoopi began, her voice carrying that familiar authoritative tone that had made her a household name. Let's talk about your recent legal battles. A lot of people are wondering if you've really learned anything from all the drama. The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Depp shifted slightly in his chair, his expression remaining composed, but his eyes showing the first hint of annoyance. Well, Whoopi, I thought we were here to discuss my new film, not relitigate the past. Oh, but the past is so important, isn't it? Whoopi pressed, leaning forward with the predatory instinct of someone who smelled blood in the water. I mean, when you're a public figure, you don't get to just sweep things under the rug. Joy Behar jumped in with her characteristic bluntness. Johnny, let's be honest here. Your reputation took a massive hit. How do you expect audiences to separate the art from the artist? Depp's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Joy, I think audiences are smart enough to make their own decisions. They've shown tremendous support for my work, and I'm grateful for that. But Johnny, Sarah Haynes interjected with false sweetness, don't you think you have a responsibility to address these concerns head-on? I mean, we're all mothers here, and we worry about the message being sent. The atmosphere in the studio was growing tense. Alyssa Farah Griffin, attempting to play the diplomatic card, added, I think what my colleagues are trying to say is that accountability matters in today's climate. Sunny Hostin, never one to miss an opportunity to grandstand, chimed in with her legal background on full display. As someone who practiced law, I find it fascinating how public perception can differ so dramatically from legal outcomes. Depp's famous composure was beginning to crack. Ladies, with all due respect, I came here in good faith to discuss my work, my craft, the things that actually matter to the people who support my films. Whoopi wasn't having it. She waved her hand dismissively, a gesture that would prove to be the first domino in a chain reaction that nobody saw coming. Johnny, you can't just waltz in here and expect us to ignore the elephant in the room. This is The View, not some puff-piece entertainment show. I understand this is The View, Depp replied, his voice remaining steady but with an edge that wasn't there before. But I was under the impression that View included some semblance of respect for your guests. The audience stirred uncomfortably. This wasn't the light, promotional interview they had expected to witness. Whoopi's eyes flashed with something that looked distinctly like irritation at being challenged. Respect, she repeated, her voice rising slightly. Respect is earned, Johnny. And when you put yourself in the public eye the way you have, when you drag people through the courts and the media, respect becomes a complicated thing. Joy Behar, emboldened by Whoopi's aggressive stance, decided to pile on. I have to agree. With Whoopi here, we've seen this pattern before with powerful men in Hollywood. They think they can just charm their way back into everyone's good graces. Depp's hands, those expressive instruments that had brought so many characters to life, clenched slightly on the armrests of his chair. Joy, I think you're making some assumptions about my character that aren't based in fact. Facts. Whoopi interrupted, her voice now carrying the full weight of her decades in entertainment. Let's talk about facts. The fact is, you're personal. Life became a public spectacle. The fact is, people got hurt. The fact is, you're sitting here trying to rehabilitate your image. Sarah Haynes nodded along, clearly feeling emboldened by the pack mentality that was developing. And Johnny, we have to ask the hard questions. That's our job. We can't just give you a platform to promote your movie without addressing the real issues. The studio audience was dead silent now, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Depp looked around at the 5 women surrounding him, each one seemingly committed to this coordinated attack disguised as journalism. Hard questions, he repeated slowly, as if testing the words. Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels more like an ambush than an interview. Alyssa tried to smooth things over with her political training. Johnny, I don't think anyone here wants this to feel like an ambush. We just believe in accountability and honest conversation. But Sunny Hostin wasn't interested in smoothing anything over. The truth is, Johnny, your legal victory doesn't erase the things that were said, the things that were alleged. The court of public opinion operates differently than a court of law. Whoopi nodded approvingly at Sunny's comment, clearly pleased with the direction the conversation was taking. Exactly. And that's what we're here to discuss. Not some fantasy where we pretend none of this happened. Depp's famous calm was beginning to show serious cracks. His voice, when he spoke, carried a warning that anyone who knew him would recognize. Ladies, I've been in this business for over 3 decades. I've sat through thousands of interviews, dealt with every kind of journalist, critic, and talking head you can imagine. But what's happening here right now, this isn't journalism. This isn't even good television. The words hit the panel like a slap. Whoopi's face hardened into a mask of indignation that would have been comical if the situation weren't so tense. Excuse me, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous low. Are you seriously going to sit there and lecture us about journalism? About television? Do you have any idea who you're talking to? Johnny's question hung in the air like a challenge thrown down at high noon. The studio audience could feel the electricity crackling between the guests and hosts, and every camera operator knew they were capturing television gold that Whoopi's eyes narrowed to slits. Oh, I know exactly who I am, Johnny. I'm someone who's been in this business since before you were even thinking about acting. I'm someone who's won every award there is to win. And I'm someone who doesn't get intimidated by movie stars who think they can waltz in here and dictate how this interview goes. The venom in her voice was unmistakable now. This had moved far beyond professional disagreement into personal territory, and everyone in the studio could sense it. Depp leaned back in his chair, a sardonic smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Intimidated? Whoopi, I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. I'm simply pointing out that what you're doing here isn't interviewing. It's character assassination dressed up as daytime television. Joy Behar couldn't resist jumping back into the fray. Oh please, Johnny. Character assassination? We're asking legitimate questions about your very public legal drama. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Joy, Depp said, turning to face her directly. There's a difference between asking legitimate questions and setting up a public execution. What you're all doing here is the latter. Sarah Haynes, clearly feeling the need to justify the panel's approach, chimed in with artificial concern. Johnny, we're not trying to execute anyone. We're trying to have an honest conversation about accountability in Hollywood. Isn't that important? Depp's laugh was short and humorless. Accountability? Sarah, let me ask you something. When was the last time any of you held yourselves accountable for the things you've said on this show? The people you've wrongly accused? The careers you've damaged with your opinions presented as facts? The question hit like a grenade. Sunny Hostin's face flushed with indignation. Are you seriously comparing our work as journalists to your personal legal battles? We report the news, Johnny. We don't make it. Report the news. Depp's voice was rising now, his famous composure finally beginning to crack in earnest. Sunny, you don't report news. You manufacture outrage. You take complex situations and reduce them to sound bites designed to generate clicks and controversy. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing through the studio like a gunshot. How dare you come on our show and insult us? How dare you sit there and act like you're some kind of victim? The mask was completely off now. This wasn't Whoopi the professional broadcaster. This was Whoopi the angry, entitled celebrity who couldn't tolerate being challenged. Depp stood up slowly, his full height now imposing over the seated panel. Victim? I never said I was a victim. Whoopi. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and be lectured by someone who's made a career out of bullying people on national television. The audience gasped audibly. Nobody spoke to Whoopi Goldberg like that, especially not on her own show. Alyssa Farrah Griffin tried desperately to regain control. Johnny, I think we're all getting a little heated here. Maybe we should take a step back and no. Depp interrupted, his voice cutting through her diplomatic attempt like a blade. No, Alyssa, there's no stepping back from this. You've all made it very clear what this is about. This isn't about accountability or journalism or any of the high-minded principles you're hiding behind. This is about power. This is about a group of people who think their platform gives them the right to destroy anyone they don't like. Joy Behar's face was red with anger. Destroy? Johnny, we're asking questions. That's what we do. If you can't handle questions, then maybe you shouldn't be a public figure. Questions. Depp's voice was incredulous now. Joy, let me tell you what questions look like. Questions would be, tell us about your new film. Questions would be, what was it like working with your co-stars? What you're doing is making statements disguised as questions, designed to trap me into defending myself against accusations you're treating as established facts. Sunny Hostin couldn't contain herself any longer. Those accusations were made in court, Johnny. Under oath. Are you saying the legal system doesn't matter? Depp turned to face her, his eyes blazing with an intensity that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Sunny, I won that case. The jury found in my favor. But you're all sitting here acting like that never happened, like the verdict doesn't matter because it doesn't fit your narrative. Whoopi was practically vibrating with rage now. The verdict doesn't change what was said. It doesn't change what people heard. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to come in here and attack us for doing our jobs. Your jobs. Depp's laugh was bitter now. Whoopi, your job is supposed to be entertaining people, informing them, maybe even inspiring them. What you're doing here is none of those things. You're using your platform to settle personal vendettas and destroy people you don't like. Sarah Haynes looked genuinely shocked at the accusation. Personal vendettas? Johnny, we don't even know. You personally. This isn't personal, this is professional. Depp shook his head, his expression a mixture of disgust and disappointment. Sarah, everything about this has been personal from the moment I sat down. The loaded questions, the hostile tone, the coordinated attack, the complete dismissal of anything I try to say in my own defense. You've already decided who I am and what I've done, and nothing I say here is going to change that. Alyssa made another attempt at diplomacy. Johnny, I think there might be some misunderstanding here. We're not trying to attack you. We're just trying to stop, Depp said, holding up his hand. Just stop, Alyssa. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this is anything other than what it is. You've all made your positions clear. You've made it clear that you think I'm guilty of things I was cleared of in court. You've made it clear that you think your opinions matter more than legal verdicts. And you've made it clear that you're not interested in hearing anything that doesn't confirm your preconceived notions. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras and lights. Even the crew seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see how this unprecedented confrontation would resolve itself. That Whoopi's voice, when she finally spoke, was dripping with condescension. Johnny, if you're done with your little tantrum, maybe we can get back to the interview. The word tantrum hung in the air like a lit fuse, and everyone in the studio knew that Whoopi had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The word tantrum seemed to echo through the studio, and for a moment, time itself appeared to freeze. Johnny Depp's face went through a transformation that was almost frightening to watch, his features hardening into something that none of the hosts had ever seen before. Tantrum, he repeated, his voice so quiet that the audience had to strain to hear him. Did you just call my defense of my character and career a tantrum? Whoopi, clearly feeling emboldened by what she perceived as having the upper hand, doubled down with the kind of arrogance that only comes from years of unchallenged authority. If the shoe fits, Johnny, you're acting like a child who can't handle criticism. The studio audience let out a collective gasp. Several people in the front row actually covered their mouths in shock. Even the camera operators seemed stunned by Whoopi's brazen disrespect. Depp took a step closer to the panel, his presence suddenly filling the entire space with an energy that was both magnetic and dangerous. A child, Whoopi. A child who can't handle criticism. Let me tell you what a child looks like. A child is someone who uses their position of power to bully guests on their show. A child is someone who thinks their opinion is more important than facts, evidence, and legal verdicts. A child is someone who hides behind a panel of enablers instead of having the courage to have a real conversation. Joy Behar's mouth fell open in outrage. How dare you call us enablers? We're independent women with our own opinions. Depp turned his gaze to Joy, and the intensity of his stare made her visibly uncomfortable. Independent? Joy, when was the last time any of you disagreed with Whoopi on anything substantial? When was the last time you challenged her narrative or stood up to her when she was wrong? You're not independent. You're a chorus, and she's your conductor. Sunny Hostin jumped to Whoopi's defense with the fury of someone whose worldview was being challenged. You don't know what you're talking about. We have respectful disagreements all the time. Respectful disagreements? Depp's laugh was sharp and cutting. Sunny, there's nothing respectful about what any of you have done here today. You've ambushed a guest, ignored basic principles of fairness, and then had the audacity to act offended when I called you out on it. Sarah Haynes, looking increasingly desperate to salvage the situation, tried once more to play peacemaker. Johnny, I really think we can work this out if we just… Work what out, Sarah? Depp interrupted, his voice rising with genuine anger now. Work out how you can continue this character assassination while pretending it's journalism? Work out how you can destroy someone's reputation while claiming you're just asking questions? There's nothing to work out here. You've shown me exactly who you are. Alyssa Farah Griffin made one final attempt to regain control of the situation. Johnny, I understand you're upset, but this is live television. Maybe we should. Live television. Depp's voice was incredulous. Alyssa, that's exactly the problem. You think because this is live television, you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, and there are no consequences. Well, let me tell you something about consequences. He turned to face Whoopi directly, his eyes blazing with an intensity that made her lean back in her chair for the first time since the interview began. Whoopi, you've spent your entire career positioning yourself as some kind of moral authority, some wise elder who gets to decide who's worthy of redemption and who isn't. But what you really are is a bully with a platform. You're someone who's forgotten that with great power comes great responsibility, and you've chosen to use your power to tear people down instead of build them up. Whoopi's face was a mask of fury now, her carefully constructed public persona completely shattered. Get out, she said through gritted teeth. Just get out of here right now. Oh, I'm leaving, Depp said, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that made everyone in the studio hang on his every word. But not because you told me to. I'm leaving because I have too much respect for myself to sit here and be abused by people who think their celebrity gives them the right to destroy others. He began removing his microphone with deliberate, measured movements, each action calculated to maximum effect. You know what the real tragedy is here? This show used to mean something. It used to be a place where different perspectives could be heard, where real conversations could happen. But you've turned it into a platform for persecution, a place where you invite people just so you can tear them apart for entertainment. Joy Behar couldn't contain her rage any longer. You arrogant, self-righteous. Careful, Joy, Depp warned, his voice cutting through her outburst like a knife. The cameras are still rolling. Wouldn't want America to see the real you, would you? The threat hung in the air, and Joy's mouth snapped shut like a trap. Sunny Hostin tried one last desperate attempt to maintain the moral high ground. Johnny, we're just trying to hold you accountable for your actions. Depp turned to her with something that might have been pity in his eyes. Sunny, I was held accountable. In a court of law, by a jury of my peers, with evidence and testimony, and all the protections that our legal system provides. What you're doing here isn't accountability, it's vigilante justice. It's mob rule dressed up as righteousness. He finished removing his microphone and set it carefully on the table, the small gesture somehow carrying enormous weight. Ladies, he said, addressing the entire panel with a formality that was more insulting than any curse word could have been. This has been educational. Not enjoyable, not productive, but certainly educational. You've shown me, and everyone watching, exactly what happens when power corrupts people who should know better. Sarah Haynes made one final, desperate plea. Johnny, please, we can start over. We can talk about your movie. Depp shook his head with something that looked like genuine sadness. Sarah, it's too late for that. You can't unring a bell, and you can't unsay the things that have been said here today. But maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's good that people get to see this, get to see how you really treat your guests when you think you can get away with it. He began walking toward the edge of the set, his movements controlled and dignified despite the chaos he was leaving behind. Whoopi, unable to let him have the last word, called out after him, "Don't you dare walk away from me." Nobody walks away from me. Depp stopped at the edge of the set and turned back one final time, his expression a mixture of disappointment and disgust. "Whoopi, that right there is your problem. You think this is about you. You think everything is about you. But it's not. This is about basic human decency, about treating people with respect, about using your platform responsibly. And on all of those counts, you've failed spectacularly." With that, he turned and walked off the set, leaving behind a stunned panel, a shocked audience, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. The cameras continued rolling as the host sat in stunned silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over the studio like a heavy blanket. For the first time in years, Whoopi Goldberg was completely speechless. And there you have it, one of the most explosive confrontations in television history. What did you think of Johnny Depp's handling of this situation? Was he right to call out the panel's behavior? Or should he have stayed and tried to work things out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment.